Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. Today's conversation promises to be an insightful one with a remarkable guest. Whether you're joining us for the first time today or a regular listener, we're so glad you're here. Our goal is to bring you closer to the innovative leaders and thinkers shaping our future. And today, we're thrilled to welcome Ray Rottman. He has a fascinating career both in the military and the nonprofit sector. I met Ray a few years ago through his work with military colleges and schools and was immediately struck by his commitment to developing the next generation of leaders and a true lifelong dedication to serving our nation. Ray is someone who truly walks the talk, and I'm so excited to have him here on the show today. So welcome, Ray.
Thank you very much, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be here.
So just to give the listeners kind of a very consolidated background bio, you've had so many accomplishments. I was just going to hit a few of the highlights for folks. So Ray is currently the executive director of the Association of Military Colleges and Schools of the United States, where he leads development and promotion of military colleges and schools across the U.S. He's a founding member of the Severn Leadership Group in Annapolis, Maryland, and served 30 years in the United States Air Force, where he had a variety of assignments. Just a few of the highlights, he was an instructor and course developer at the Air Force Academy, vice commandant of the Air War College, speechwriter for the Secretary and Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and others, and so much more. But we'll get into all of that here in a few minutes, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background of who Ray is and a teaser of his impressive achievements. So Ray, to get us started, can you tell us where your story begins?
Absolutely. I was born in 1959 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was the youngest of 7, and I think that actually impacts my life significantly, where you fall in that lineup. My father was 45 years old when I was born. He had served in World War II in the European theater. He came across Normandy 2 weeks after the D-Day invasion, and then was in with Patton's army in Battle of the Bulge. So he had a lot of influence, obviously, on my life. I went to Catholic school, grade schools, and then when I was 11, we moved from Colorado Springs to Denver because my father's job with the railroad transferred. And so it was growing up in Denver. This is when busing is just getting started, and so I was bused downtown to East High School, and I got to see how a different segment of our world works, and that was very helpful to me as far as broadening out my horizons, going from a small parochial school to a large downtown public school. And then went to Colorado State University. I studied engineering there initially. My grades were atrocious, so I moved into business, and I graduated in 1981, and I went to work for an oil company at that point. I had thought about the military, but I hadn't acted on it. I had a brother who flew off of carriers in Vietnam, so he had all sorts of war stories for me. I had another brother who was a B-52 navigator and a C-130 navigator in the Air Force. I had a brother-in-law that flew in Vietnam in the C-130s. So I had a lot of military around my life examples for me, but that's not what I initially did. But in 1982, shortly after I got my job in the oil company, there was a recession. And so for selfish reasons, I'm not proud of it, but for selfish reasons, I thought, well, I'll just ride out the recession. I'll join the military. I think they have, paychecks that are regular, and I'll ride this out for 5 years, and then I'll come back to the oil company. Well, what happened was I fell in love with what the Air Force was doing. I fell in love with the people, the mission, the service to others. And it made me, I think, who I am in many ways. And so I did that for 30 years, and then retired in 2012 and went to work for the Association of Military Colleges and Schools, which is where I'm serving as executive director for the past 13 years. Again, great people, serving others, developing character and values and young people who will be our leaders of our nation. So that's a snapshot of who I am. My life has been richly blessed, and I recognize that fully.
That's great. it's so interesting to hear kind of your family legacy of military service and, you know, multiple eras and kind of capacities, and definitely see where you get it from. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the organization that you work with now, kind of what they do and kind of their scope?
Absolutely. The Association of Military Colleges and Schools has been around since 1914. So we're 111 years old. It started with colleges and boarding schools largely, and from across the nation. And back in 1914, there were a lot more military colleges and schools than there are today. There's a rich history in the military school world. That's actually where ROTC came from, and all of the buildup for World War I, as far as getting officers through and getting training done, a lot of that came from these schools. So it's a rich history. We have boarding schools, which are private. We have day schools. We have the growth industry for us now is probably something called a military charter school. It's a public school largely in inner cities or areas where you have a large population, and these people opt in. It's like a charter or a magnet school where you opt into the school. The kids wear uniforms, and they have order and discipline and structure in their lives and in the classrooms. And that military education model helps them form their character, learn about values, and it really changes them. A lot of these kids in the inner cities would not be going to college, but this couple of 3 years, 4 years with these schools allows them that opportunity. So it's something I'm very proud of. I work with a lot of both civilian as well as retired military people, but no one in our business is getting rich, but what they are doing is they're making a big difference in the world. And so we say that we're making the world better one cadet at a time, and we really are very proud of our work.
Yeah, I love that tagline. It really encapsulates kind of the impact. I think a lot of folks aren't aware, you know, that in our world today in America, you know, the majority of people don't have a family connection to military service, whereas previous generations, you know, that was more of the norm. And I think it's awesome that these schools sometimes provide the first exposure to folks to the military.
You know, Hannah, an interesting thing about our business is a lot of America, because the World War II generation is largely past, and it just fewer and fewer people really have a connection to the military. So Hollywood is their connection to the military, and I find that unfortunate in some regards. But military schools are depicted in by Hollywood as being TAPS or Lords of Discipline. You know, these kind of crazy, very military focused things. That's not at all what military schools are. Military schools are not where you send your wayward son before he goes to jail. These are places where you take a young man or young lady and offer them the structure, the stability, the leadership opportunities to really develop and grow. And so part of my job in the last 13 years is trying to convince people that the military education model is not the military. It's just the structure that kids, especially teenagers, thrive in, because they need to have some sort of barriers or guardrails around them as they move forward.
Yeah, that's a great description. Great description. So in your career, was there a particular person or event that kind of served as a catalyst or you know, kind of a really impactful mentor that shaped your journey?
I thought about this, and I think in addition to my father, who I idolized, and I remember as a child sitting there in our den watching the movie Patton, and this is my dad was just reliving his time in World War II, and you could see the pride that he took, and he was a man of great character, and you know, Patton was the general that he admired the most and that he served under, and so. My family, for sure, it was a huge influence to me. My brother who flew off Vigilantes, my brother-in-law who graduated from the Air Force Academy and flew C-130s in Vietnam, my other brother who went to Colorado State in junior ROTC, senior ROTC. Those people certainly influenced me. These were people of character, people who I respected, and so that's what I thought about the military, as opposed to, you know, what Hollywood might tell you about the military. Once I got into the military, again, I came in for selfish reasons, thinking that I would just stay 5 years and get my paycheck and go. But I started meeting people that really made a difference in my life. Bill Chambers is a gentleman who we were both captains when I first met him. He went on to be a retired 2-star Air Force general, but just a man of incredible character and always did the right things. And these were things that were not lost on me. I saw his example and I saw how kind he was. And it certainly inspired me. And then I had several others along the way: Carol Wojciechowski, Bob Barrier, Tom Stickford. These are people who saw some sort of spark in me or quality, and they took the time to pause, sit down with me, and say, "Hey, you have some potential here," and then they invested in me. And I think that's a note for everybody out there. Take time to get away from your emails, get away from your texting, and sit down with people, find out where they are and what motivates them, and see if there might be some relational activity that you guys can do together to better the organization, the individual, or whatever. It's that investment that is so critical.
Yeah, I love how you kind of described that. I think in our society today, folks, you know, investing in others is not on many people's radar. And to your point, it can make a world of difference in someone's life. It covers so much distance as opposed to just like, you know, taking a course in professional development or reading a book on it. Having someone that takes time to get to know you and understand you as a human, your drivers, your experiences, your perspectives, and then kind of encourages you to, or even opens your eyes to see things that you don't see about yourself, can really cover so much ground.
I taught a class last night. I volunteer for the Severn Leadership Group. This is a mentor group out of Annapolis, Maryland. It's now in several locations, but I work at the one in Annapolis. And one of the fellows, which are the people who are in the class, was lamenting that they didn't have time to go out and, you know, have these relationships and talk to people, because the demands on their job were so intense that they literally just didn't have time to do that. And so we had a great discussion about that's what society tells us, you know, that you have to get your metrics done, you have to get your emails done. If you have come in the morning, there's 7 emails, you got to get through those. Really, we need to pause from that and go out and have a cup of coffee or a discussion, some quiet time with individuals, and that investment will help them and the organization tenfold, so much more than just doing the task lists or sending out texts or emails to tell people to, you know, to check their metrics. It's all relational, and this through relationships and through investing in that. And I know everybody's busy, but that is where you need to invest.
Wise words, right? I love the emphasis on investment, because I think people use that as kind of the argument to not do it. It's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get anything out of this, you know, but I'll meet the bottom line on here. And it's really cumulative too in your career. If you don't invest in people, you know, over time, I mean, it can really hold you back. It's very mutually beneficial to make that investment in others.
Absolutely. And it benefits both you as well as the other person. And I make a case that it has tremendous impact on the organization, because it will spread that he or she, the leader, is not just a taskmaster, but this person cares about me. They want to know about me, and they invest time and resources and training in me so that I can be a stronger person for the organization.
So I know, you know, every career journey has its hurdles. So can you tell us about maybe some of the obstacles that you faced in your career and kind of how you overcame those?
Absolutely. I was not a good student, like in college and things. I barely got by because I wasn't focused. I didn't have I didn't put the attention where it needed to be. I just was wandering. And so for me, education and academics has always been a struggle, as opposed to something that I would embrace. I think probably that was the biggest thing that I had to overcome, is I had to learn to focus myself and invest time where it would bring the most return on the investment for me. I can also think of things, 30 years, I had multiple deployments, whether it be a few weeks or a few months at a time, but a lot of time away from family, leaving my wife. We raised 3 children. I say I take a little bit of credit for it, but really, as I look back, she raised 3 great children. And I had to leave all the time. And our family has this thing called Dad's in mission mode. I got bought into the thing that the Air Force is sending me on this mission, and I just have to go, and no apologies. I'm washing my hands of this family stuff. Good luck, and I'll see you in 4 months or something. And so I think that was a little bit unfair. My wife has a PhD in psychology from Texas Christian University. We moved every 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. So she was never really able to leverage that. And so I got the paycheck, but she paid a huge price for this service that we did. And I think spouses in general, in the military at least, pay a significant cost for the benefit of the member. Here I was going away and doing things that would get me promoted and take care of my career, but it came at a cost to her career. So if I could go back in time, I think I'd look at that a little bit differently. But it's hard. It's hard to change things in the past.
Oh, no, that's great. Great insight. As a former military spouse, since my spouse is retired, it was only after he retired that I was able to hold on to employment.
Right.
I was teaching at colleges, and it was rare I could do 2 semesters. Like,
Right.
by the time I get hired and
Yeah.
onboarded and like slotted for a course before we would move again. So I very much understand that, and I'm very impressed with your wife's ability to attain, the educational level, and just y'all's ability to work as a team in that. And, our nation is better off for it. So
My wife and I call those the dark years because we don't remember them. Raising 3 children, myself deploying, get a couple master's degrees. She's getting her PhD. It was a very busy time.
yeah. Yeah, well, those are the times when, the people you have near you can make a world of difference.
Absolutely.
Support and perspective. So I know today you work on the front lines with preparing and equipping kind of the next generation of leaders in multiple sectors. So the military, but also, graduates from these military colleges and schools may go on into government, business, nonprofit sectors as well. So you see folks embarking on their professional career, going many different directions every year. What career advice do you have for the next generation of professionals, in today's world?
The world is changing very dramatically. And so the world, when I joined the Air Force almost 45 years ago, it was a very different world. And it was a time period when you would stay with one organization, potentially, and get your retirement, and that's what you'd do with your life. I think my advice to people now is you're going to be moving. You're going to have to think critically. You're going to have to operate on your own, operate independently, but also be able to fold in and work as a team. And these are very different skill sets, as you well know. And so I would say, think about that. Think about also your work life is probably 2/3 of your actual life. And so try and think about something you're passionate about, because there's no sense on Sunday night to have a dreading feeling that you have to go to work on Monday. Find something that you actually are looking forward to going in and rolling up your sleeves and working with your team and bringing about positive change in some way. When I was in college, like I said, I was not focused whatsoever. I wish that I had talked to college counselors or people who would say, this is what you need to think about if you want to have success. And success is not it was for me in my mindset. I was wrong. A new car or a nice house or the monetary aspects of success. As I look back now, that has little to do with. I mean, you have to earn a living wage for sure. I get that. But really, the joy in life does not come from an IRA account with a certain number in it. The joy in life is everyday interactions. And when you go in, are the people that you're working with enjoying working with you? So lean into the thing. I found for myself, I didn't know about service really, but I found that serving others is an incredibly rewarding thing for me. And there's all sorts of jobs and careers out there where you can serve others and bring about positive change. And I think that that's where the most joy will come. And people who die with huge bank accounts, I'm not sure they die happy. And I don't think that money brings happiness. I really don't believe that. I think you have to have enough to get by. But your joy in life is something you decide on. And so think about what you're doing with that 2/3 of your living time on earth, what you're going to do with that time, that time period, how you're going to invest your work life.
Defining, success for yourself in a way that aligns with your values, your beliefs, makes a world of difference. Your point on, not just the new car and the big bank account. So many folks that have that are miserable and empty. And
but if you look at society, if you look at TV, if you look at movies, that's all it's about. It's all about having the bling, and it's a I think it's a travesty that's what our whole economy is based off of, getting ahead of the Joneses. Well, really, it's not a competition with the Joneses. How about we have, lunch with the Joneses and enjoy their company and work together? So,
yeah, we were traveling last week, and I caught this reality TV show. It's Real Housewives of something, and all the stars are just covered in diamonds, and they have the Lamborghinis. And I hadn't seen this show before, Ray, and so I watched it for an hour. I was just like transfixed, because in that hour span, I have never seen a show that had that much like screaming and fighting. I was like, they have all the things. Why aren't they so angry? But TV says that's what should be your number one goal at all costs, right? So at the expense of your family, at the expense of your community, other people. And I think it's just a real, just a real lie that's being kind of sold. And really appreciate your kind of, insights on looking at success through a different lens and then approaching your career that way.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And you have to fight against society who is just marketing this on every commercial, every TV show, every movie you see. It's all about a competition for wealth and resources, which I do not think bring happiness.
Mm-hmm. So what skills or mindsets do you think are essential for success in kind of the defense or national security sector?
Well, I think technology is changing the world dramatically. And so the how things are getting done is changing, but the why behind it, I think is still there. So I think people need to be flexible. They need to be adaptable, and not be afraid of change, because change is absolutely exponential in its nature here. And so if you are afraid of change, you're not going to enjoy this ride that's in front of you. You need to learn to embrace change, learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, if you will. Every time I got into a new job, I would worry about imposter syndrome. Do I have what it's going to take to get this thing done? Every time I was able to do that. I was able to overcome that and learn, working with others. It wasn't the Ray Rottman show. It was a team event for sure. But surround yourself with capable people, make yourself vulnerable to them, and let them see that you are willing to serve them, and you are willing to do whatever the lowest ranking job is. You're glad to do that because it's what the team needs. So I would say embrace a team approach, embrace looking for opportunities, scan the horizon for what's changing, because it is 100% changing. You just need to be adaptable and find joy in those changes. Some people are so resistant to change that they spend, half of their time just pushing back on it, as opposed to wrapping their arms around it and saying, what is the good part of what is happening here? Let's not focus on the problems or the challenges of this upcoming change. What are the opportunities for us here? And so it's really a mindset, I believe. And if you can get that mindset, I think you can do anything, whether it be in the defense industry or anything else.
Well, that's an excellent perspective. There truly is lots of opportunities in changing environments. People tend to lock in into kind of like a scarcity mindset or principle. I know even I freaked out a few weeks ago. Our company is in government contracting, mostly in the federal sector, and which that world right now is quite chaotic. Lots of changes, workforce, contracts, missions, programs, every aspect of it's changing. I joke I'm never going to complain about government bureaucracy again because what I would do to have a little bit of that today.
Right,
but I found even myself falling into that. It was like one thing was being altered that I had planned for this year. And it's just my first thought is, well, this is ruined. And it was interesting to me because as soon as I kind of went into that mindset, I don't see opportunities at all. And then through talking to folks that we have longstanding, relationships with, they're like, hey, well, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Are you tracking on this? And it was just opportunities kind of come up that way. And I think, to your point, people just the mindset of, I'm going to resist change at all costs, and change is always bad, is really limiting.
It's detrimental. Stephen Covey, he was the author of this 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. He had these 2 circles. One was a circle of concern. It's the things that you worry about, whether it be the defense contract that you lost or was changed. And then circle of influence or control, those things that you control. And if you find yourself always reacting to changes out there, and there's going to be a lot of changes out there, you'll have anxiety. You'll be worried about things that you have no control over, and you'll be going nowhere. Whereas if you focus on what you, and I know it's a smaller group, but it's the things that you do control. What like you in your business could go out and put out other bids, or you can do other things that are within your control. If you focus in that and you're proactive, then you'll find so much more joy in your life, and you'll just be a far happier person.
And positioned to kind of support others in their way, a fresh perspective. One thing that I keep seeing is especially in kind of the younger generations is the immense just kind of consumption of information through the internet and researching online, staying up to date. I think are all great things. There's lots of uses you can do with that, but just the information overload of spending 8 hours a day. I think one of the terms is doom scrolling, but reading all this information, and it I'll catch myself if I open up a news app and just scroll 2 or 3 little things down. I mean, you have this feeling of, there's no opportunities out there. Everything is bad. There's nothing I can do about it. So I'm just going to sit here and worry. Right. And it really alters kind of your approach.
You're so right, Hannah. And our world is, especially with texting, social media, all of these things that are out there now. And the young generation, they were raised on that. Here, I'm a new learner to this thing. So this is foreign to me. But I think there's a lot to be learned from relational thing, not to text your friends or not to call your friends, but to go sit in a basement with your friend or in the back porch or have that relationship, that discussion, because that's real. A lot of the things on the internet and social media are fabricated and then just continue to be spewed out. And so now if you say it enough times, it becomes true. But I think there's a lot of danger in that. And so anytime you can inspire somebody to go and have that conversation one-on-one with somebody else. It helps them mentally, and it also helps the other person mentally, and it gets you away from this very dark portion of social media that I think is not helpful.
Yeah. So are there any, I know you've mentioned quite a few kind of strategies and approaches in your career journey, like mentoring and connecting with others, but are there any other kind of resources or strategies that you found particularly useful in your career journey?
I think I'm a big history buff, and so I like history. But studying history, and especially in the military mindset, although the tactics have changed and the systems that are being used have changed, it's a circle, and it keeps coming back. And so just to be whatever your professional field is, to study it and understand it and have I'm not proud of this. I'm not a big reader. I don't find joy in reading, but I find joy in learning. And so I have to go in a different direction to find that information. But I think anybody who can expand their mind, expand their aperture, and understand more about the business that they're in, they'll feel far more comfortable in it. And I firmly believe that you'll start seeing cycles, and it won't be so scary the time the thing turns over, because you'll see, well, in the last 40 years or 400 years, it's turned over 45 times or something. There's a repetition here that I think is helpful to you if you understand it. If you have not seen it or you don't understand it, it can be very frightening and disturbing to you. So I would say to people who are out there, find a field that you love and then learn about it, not just what it's doing today, but how did we get to today? And what if your industry was around 200 years ago, what did it look like then? And how are we here now? And then that will give you some sort of clue as to, yeah, it does change several times, but there's always something good about it. And there's always opportunities for those people who are willing to take advantage of them.
Yeah, there's truly, nothing new under the sun. My spouse and I, during COVID, we unpacked some military things we had inherited from our predecessors. And one of the items we found in an old footlocker was my spouse's great-grandfather's diary from the trenches of World War One.
Wow.
And so this was a day-by-day account of all of his time in Europe, and then he rehabilitated in hospitals in Europe and then in the States from gas attacks. And so we transcribed, this was a handwritten journal that was over 100 years old, and we transcribed it, made a big digital copy. And it was so interesting to me to see kind of that 4 to 5 generation cycle that, you mentioned coming back, because they had the flu pandemic. Here we were experiencing COVID. His military experience, his rehabilitation, his kind of transitioning, he was no longer fit for duty, couldn't wear the uniform. And my spouse, 100 years later, this is happening after Afghanistan. And it was so interesting because we actually found out in the journals, my great uncle, who was this little farm boy from North Carolina, served alongside my husband's great-grandfather, who was from New York City, and right in the trenches. And it was so interesting. We didn't know that connection, but to see kind of the cycle of things coming back and the positives. So the resilience that was there and what they did with their lives and the people they impacted. So I think that's just great perspective that's often lost. We think, if we're not a history buff, we don't want to read that, or we don't want to look into that. But there's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from, those that went before us.
And good for you and your husband for taking it from the Foot Locker and digitizing it so it can be shared. Because in a Foot Locker, first off, if the Foot Locker is shut, no one's going to read it. But not only did you take it out, but you made it accessible to others so we can all learn from this thing. Some of my favorite things are going through old photo albums of the black and white photos from my father back in the 1920 and things of this nature, and just learning the stories about what took place there. And I see him as a young boy, and I'm like, you never see I never saw my father, because by the time I knew him, he was 50. So I never saw him as a young person, but and to know that that this cycle repeats. And here now I'm the old person, and I'm visiting my grandchildren who are the young people down in New Orleans. So it's a wonderful cycle, but you need to embrace it as opposed to be afraid of it, or like people get upset about being old. Being old is a great thing, and it's something to embrace. It's part of this wonderful journey that we're given. So don't all these people that go in and get treatments to try and stay looking 20 years old. It doesn't make sense to me. Embrace where you are and live fully. That's my recommendation.
That's great advice. So what do you think our society or the next generation is lacking in terms of being kind of positioned to succeed in the world today, always changing, so much information, all the things?
It's funny. You hear all sorts of press, especially from, I'm a boomer. So, okay, all the boomers say all the younger generations are weak, but certainly my father thought that the boomers were weak. And so I look at I have the great opportunity, whether it be mentoring with a Seven Leadership Group or working with these schools that are raising teenage and college cadets, to see how wonderful they are. And so we beat them with a stick and say, oh, this generation's weak. They don't do this. They're on the internet too much, or all this stuff. But it's our responsibility to have that relationship with them, to engage them. The ones that I meet and get to know, as opposed to just read about, are wonderful, incredibly capable individuals. What are we doing? And I think the onus is on us to invest in them, to have discussions with them, and to boost them up as they go, because they're going to go to a different place than we went. That's for sure. But I have every confidence. I'm an eternal optimist that this group is going to be better than my group by a long shot. And I hope they're as good as my father's group, the greatest generation type of people. And I have no fear about that. Technology is changing quickly. They're learning to adapt. That's a critical skill. That's a wonderful thing. I think we just need to invest in them to make sure that they don't get caught up like we did to chase the fancy car and the fancy house at the expense of enjoying life. Life is very finite. We don't know if we get the 5 years or 100 years, but it's finite. And so what are you doing? And have that conversation with the young person to say, are you enjoying life right now? And if the answer is no, well, what can change to make your life enjoyable? And if they're happy, their friends will be happy, their family will be happy, and it just spreads out. So I don't see the negativity that some people say about the current generation or the weakness or something like this. I think they're outstanding people. We owe them an investment that we were also given.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you really epitomize a life of meaning. And I think it really shows in kind of your commitment to investing in others. And I kind of, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about it, and it's you really kind of take on that responsibility to mentor and invest in the next generation. And I think it's something that will pay dividends in terms of their lives and the people they touch, and kind of serve as they go on. And it's really it's very impactful. I think people don't see, it's not like you click a button and there's a package of something you like sitting out your door. It's not that instant. It's something that is truly kind of you sow the seed there, and it can make all the difference.
Unlike that package that's on your front porch in 4 hours, what this investment does take a little bit longer time, but it lasts forever, and its impact is immense. I'm 66 years old. I'm going, I'm on the last quarter or whatever of my game here, and so I'm not doing this for me. But I've had a richly blessed life, but my grandchildren, I want the world to be a place where they can flourish as well. And so I see that's the responsibility, not just old people, but young people like yourself as well. We all need to invest in each other, but especially let's invest in those people who are in their formative years.
Yeah, truly being future focused in how we're allocating our time and efforts.
Absolutely.
So Looking back, moving from the future to the past, what stands out as one of the most rewarding experiences of your professional journey?
Hmm. I, first off, I've had just, I've been incredibly blessed. There's no doubt about that. And I don't see it as luck or, I mean, I've worked hard, but I've been given opportunities and I have been blessed. There's no doubt about that. I believe we're all blessed. If we just need to recognize what that is and harness whatever those blessings are. But looking back on my Air Force career, a couple things jump out. I was a colonel, so I don't know how old I was, but I was a '06 colonel when the first time I really went to war. I had flown in combat operations before in a KC-135 tanker, which is away from the fight. We don't have any defenses and those type of things. So we're on the outer edge of the issue. But never had I been in a place where things blow up, around me. And so as a colonel, I was selected to be the Balad Air Base in Iraq operations group commander. So they had F-16s there, they had search and rescue helicopters there, they had all sorts of predators and all sorts of assets that were being employed in the theater. And so to work in an environment like that I found very rewarding because everybody is in a place that it is dangerous, and it gives me great pride for our Army and Marine Corps and those others that are on the front line where things actually get kinetic on a daily basis. I hadn't realized that, so it was enlightening to see that. But even more important to me was to bring that group together and when something blows up around you, it's scary, and these are difficult times, but to focus them on, yeah, it's scary, but the mission has still got to go on. We're here for a reason, and we need to do that, and to bring peace to these people through conversations. Again, it's all relational. So I could send out an email and say, hey, get to your bunker or something like that, or fix whatever's broken. But it's so much more important to be there with them, to do that with them. So that's one thing. Then I had shortly after that, I was the wing commander at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. And this was a group of 3,200 people that I was kind of like the mayor, if you will. But it allowed me on a personal level to reach out to these people and to impact lives by finding out which people were in need, finding out which people had the greatest capability, and investing once again on a personal level in these individuals that have gone on to do great things. So I guess that's my thing, is impacting the lives of others in a positive way, bringing some sort of joy to them, just like Bob Barrier had done when I was a young captain at Minot Air Force Base. He sat down with me when no one else had ever told me I had a glimmer of hope. He said, I'm seeing something here, and what do you want to do? And that was a switch in my life that made me go on to do the things that I've done. And I'm not saying that anything great, but he changed the trajectory of my life. And I think it's on us to change the trajectory of others. And again, I'm going to foot stomp this, but it's all about relationships. It's all about mentoring. It's all about investing time. And time is the asset that you can't get back, but invest your time wisely in others.
Yeah, we focus on money, yet time is truly the most valuable and arguably possibly one of the most limited resources that we have.
I heard somebody on internet or something saying that when you're 80 years old, you'll have a lot of money or whatever you'll have. You will give every bit of that away to be 50 years old again. So that you need to listen to that. That's telling you can amass all the great cars and the biggest garage and the shiniest whatever. It's going to be of no value to you when you start losing your health or whatever. And we're all on this ride coming into the station. Enjoy the ride and don't be afraid of the station. The station is a good place. It's part of the ride. But to get to the station only to be buried in gold coins and not have enjoyed the ride would be a terrible shame.
So looking forward, what are you most hopeful for in terms of our future?
I'm a man of faith, and I don't push faith off on people, but faith to me has been critical in my life because I have a relationship with someone, above me, and I'm because of that, I think that's where my optimism comes from. And I meet people who are don't share my optimism, and maybe they're pessimistic, and I worry for them, because, to be quite honest, because they're not enjoying their ride, and their ride is finite, like all of our rides are. And so I think you need to be, first off, be grateful for what you have. And you always look around, or especially our media, they'll say, well, look at, he's got a brand new car. Yours is a year old. You're a loser. No, no, no. Be grateful that you have a car, whatever year it is. Be grateful that you have a family. Be grateful when you wake up in the morning that you woke up in the morning, and celebrate these things and share that celebration with those around you. And your life will benefit, and their lives will benefit, and our society will be better, and my grandchildren will be given the ability to flourish just like I had.
Those are great advice. When I was in undergrad, I worked the night shift in hospice, so I would sit with folks, and I thought it was interesting. I sat with over 100 people as they were on the last stretch of life, and caring for them, talking to them, and it was interesting to me because every single story that they would tell me, everything they would talk about, was always memories with other people. And that was what stood out. And it didn't matter, what they'd kind of, where their journey in life, where it started and where they kind of ended up, per se, like socioeconomically or anything. It was just these people and these memories with people. And it really impressed upon me. There is the perspective here, needs to be shifted to the reality of, to your point, life, there is a set date, a set time we've got, and lots of difficult things can happen, and finding some connection, higher power, religious practice, a faith, something that can kind of help you weather those storms, can make a world of difference, and kind of surround yourself with the community members.
This Severn leadership group that I volunteer for, it started off from some faith-based people, but it specifically has been set up not to be faith-based, because we don't want to exclude people who believe or whatever. But I think that everyone needs to have some place to go to rejuvenate, whether that be meditation, whether that be exercise, whether that be, some people are just so academic that they just love doing numbers and seeing the science of that. That's great. Whatever it is for you, use it to your advantage, and use it to the advantage of those around you, and share that knowledge with them. But be happy in life, because the ride is finite, and it would be a shame when you're in hospice, and we'll all be in hospice at some point, or something like that, to look back with regret, as opposed to say, I got my full ride and I'm so happy.
Well, you have shared so many amazing insights and experiences today. I wanted to see if you had any kind of final words for the audience as we wrap up here.
Well, first off, I say thank you for this opportunity. I've enjoyed it very much, Hannah, and I appreciate that I got to participate in this. My message to anybody that will hear it is, enjoy your life, celebrate your life, be grateful for what you have, and share what you have with others. And the biggest benefit to me with whatever I've acquired is not spending it on myself, but helping someone else by what I have acquired. I used to think that acquiring wealth was the issue. Now it's absolutely clear to me that it is the giving and the passing through of these blessings to others is where I find the greatest joy in life. So I can't recommend enough sharing whatever it is you have. Even if you think it's not much, share it, and you'll find that it's tenfold more than you thought it was.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Ray, for sharing your insights, your experiences today. Your contribution to our nation, I know, has impacted so many. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in on this episode of Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. We hope this conversation has sparked new ideas and perspectives as you approach your own career journey and you think about our future. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you next time with another exciting guest.